You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
All right, hey, All Things 3D here. I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And we're here with Cedric, not the entertainer, but Cedric from tell us where you're from.
I'm from Montreal originally, and I'm not Diggory either. We just got to get that one straight. But now Madison, Wisconsin based. That's where our company Spectrom 3D is located.
Spectrum 3D, cool. Well, for the listeners that didn't get to see the video bumper in the beginning, they offer a new system that enables FDM or FFF style printers, the ability to print in full color. So Cedric's going to tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, yeah. So we want to be this universal part. And do you guys want to start with questions, or just let me know what you want?
Yeah, let's go ahead and identify. You already identified where you're at. What do you do personally? Cedric?
Personally, within the company?
Within the company and outside the company.
Sure. So we're all recent graduates within the company. We're all engineers. So we all understand the technicals of how to get this thing going. The two original co-founders, myself and Chase, we were chemical engineers, and that was sort of critical to understanding the theory behind everything, how we could make color work and how it could be feasible, and addressing the core problems to making something that wasn't just multicolor, but actually what we call full color. And we can get a little bit more into that definition as the show goes on. And taking this to the next level, we also have a computer engineer and a mechanical engineer on board as well.
Well, obviously I'm very excited about this, so tell us a little bit more about Spectrum. And you've already identified or alluded to that you're all engineers, and plus why you did it. But what's a little bit of the background besides just being engineers? What was the fundamental reason you wanted to do this?
Sure. So each of us had used 3D printing in some way before we got into this project, and we kind of said, this is a future, this is going to be a big thing. How can it be better? And we kind of identified a couple of things that we might want to do before color. Print size, how can you make it bigger? How can you make it faster or more efficient? And then we kind of landed on color. We saw there were a lot of people trying a lot of different things, but no one had really come up with the solution that we wanted to see as engineers, especially to use color as a tool when prototyping. And so we kind of put our minds to it. We did a lot of experimentation very early on, trying some of the most ridiculous ways and just failing outright until we finally found something that kind of worked, and we expanded upon it, built a few prototypes, we won some awards, and here we are today.
Great.
Awesome.
As I mentioned in one of my questions, I had some ideas of just kind of like spraying on inkjet, and you probably also went in that direction. Maybe not. Maybe you said, boy, that's not going to work, and came up with a completely unique and, in my opinion, a brilliant idea.
Thank you.
So let's kind of go into the technicals. I'm going to bring your website. Can't even talk. Your website up, and okay, maybe if I scroll back up to the top of it, there we go. So one of the things that I noticed immediately, at least from, I think I actually went by your booth at CS. I don't know why I didn't stop. I should have, because this was stunning. But I noticed that your coloring is somewhat in the pastel range, and I'm assuming that's because you're using white. Has that, I can't say the word improved, has your dye saturation or whatever you're using improved upon that? Maybe you can kind of talk about the whole process. From what we've seen in the news, you kind of inject a dye or some type of substance directly into the hot end. Is that correct? And maybe you can expand upon that?
Sure, sure. So it's actually a pre-extrusion process, which gives us a huge range of applications across different types of 3D printers and different systems. And what you spoke to is pastel, and that's sort of the look that we like. But one of the advantages of using a dye-based approach is that it's incredibly versatile. So I brought a few objects here I can show. Hopefully my camera's good enough. But we have here kind of showcasing it. We can go from this fairly transparent color. Yeah, this is a calibration object we're doing to make sure the colors align exactly how we want. And this is more of a pastel, much more opaque. You can see the difference. And so having a system like ours, we can actually transition within an object between pastel and more clear colors, if that makes sense. And so part of that versatility is really attractive to us, and we're really happy with the results.
Yeah, those actually look good, and I'm actually going to bring up some of my own objects, kind of give the history. You know, this is something I had printed some time ago. It's a little alien creature from, I think, Sculptress or Shapeways. And the interesting thing about it, this is, and you're probably well aware of this, this technique. They use a sand, they call it sandstone, but it's actually a gypsum-based material that they literally use glue and inkjet in order to provide that. But if you notice, the material is very matte, and a lot of people say muted colors. So one of the things that I've been playing around with, because I don't have your system yet, is how can we improve upon that? And I've kind of ruined this one, but I'm using a material called XT3C. I have to turn it around. No, you can't see your face. The XTC3D, which is a epoxy polymer that I brush on. Now notice how the colors became more vibrant. And so this is what I kind of talked about on our show last Friday, and how you can take that from a muted, you know, matte type finish into a more colorful.
Right.
And so until your system comes out, you know, that's kind of what you can do. I guess there's a company, actually not guess, a company called MCore, which I also put in my questions, that does something very similar, except they use paper, and their colors are actually fairly vibrant. But their system is not cheap. And then the other option you have is to hand paint them, and this is my little you know, Walter character. and then,
I'm a big fan.
I thought you might be. But, you know, this is, and this takes hours, at least for me. I guess if you had a lot more skill, you could do it quicker. But this takes a long time, so there really isn't an option out there unless you go with some of the big companies like Shapeways, and then you see the color. By the way, they just started doing injected color plastic, and I'll have something to show later on, not today, on our shows. But it's still not what I've seen with yours, and more importantly, it looks like the little guy like us will be able to afford that in the future. So
one of our main points is that this has to be affordable. It's got to be for the makers. It's got to be for the engineers that are gonna, the kind of people that would buy the desktop printer have to be able to get their hands on this. And one of the things about our system, just like you were mentioning, here's an example of like a topographical map we printed. You know, the colors are right at the surface. They're super vibrant, and we can actually control that vibrancy with a number of different options. And when you were talking about pastel, I don't know if you were referencing that they looked a little faded or not, but for us, it's the difference between kind of transparent, semi-transparent, and opaque. And the fact that we can control that gives you a huge range of possibilities.
So I'm assuming you have to have a base material, and it appeared in the video that it's white. And then you can saturate that white, making it pastel, as you showed in your initial image here. Or, actually, I'm not at that point. There we go. I'll go back to my screen here. So in this case, you just didn't use as much ink or dye, but you could actually saturate this more. So I guess my question is, do you have to use white, or can you use like a translucent material and create a more translucent appearance?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So if you look at that object on the right on the website, you can see close to the fingers that are holding it, it goes from white to transparent. And so there's two things I want to talk about this object, but first we can talk about, you know, all these colors are very strong and sort of pastel and opaque. You can't see the background behind. But as you get to the far right, you see that instant transition to a clear material, and that's on purpose. So we can.
So that is actually a clear filament that you're working with, and so is one of your colors an actual white in the dye process?
That's certainly yes.
Interesting.
if you look at this, so having that kind of control allows us to control the the opacity, as you were saying. But even
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, if you look at this, this was printed on a single layer continuously without purging. So we are going from one color to the next without ever stopping across a single layer. So we can do multiple colors per layer predictably every single time.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's just super cool. Let's see where we're at now. Okay, well, with one of the things that came to my mind, and I'll just keep scrolling down here, is, as mentioned, 3D systems, and then we have MCore doing something similar. 3D systems for many years now, MCore in just the last few years. Introducing a new technique, how did you get around possibly infringing patents, or have you created some cross-licensing, or is it just completely new and there's nothing out there and you're the first to do it? Can you kind of go into a little bit of background on that?
Our approach is completely novel, and I want to back this up by saying we're not going into too much detail about the specifics of how it works today, but I can assure you that it's been completely built from the ground up for maximum color control, the vibrancy, as well as having color integration. If you see some of these painted parts, you can wipe the color off. So that's another consideration. And with the single extrusion system, you need instant color transitions. So having everything kind of come together in one package is what we patented, and that's what we created. And actually, it was this system that we created that won us gold at the Collegiate Inventors Competition, which is actually hosted by the Patent Office in Washington, D.C. So that was a huge honor.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so you have patented this process, so kudos to you. So here we are looking at some more components. Now you have V1, V2, V3. Is that just more of an illustration of how you could use this for version control as an example?
Exactly.
Or is there something else identified here? So you just use different color schemes to identify the different versions.
Yeah, so this is a software application that we're starting to work on right now, and we want to give people an idea of, we have color, great, what's it really used for? And we think that beyond just the aesthetic parts that color brings, if it's used systematically, color can become a tool. And for people who use their 3D printers as engineers or professionally, if you look at something as simple as visual version control, when you've got 10 versions of a prototype on your desk and you're trying to see, okay, I like that component from version 2, can I mix that with version 5? You can instantly identify. And as we're going out and talking to customers and people who really want to buy this, we're kind of learning about exactly how they want to use it, and this is one of the applications. Another thing is something like the ability to bring in, say an assembly from SolidWorks. If you could break up each of the parts of all the gears and all this stuff and just have them colored separately, it's very simple, but it's very effective too.
Awesome.
Okay.
And so this this process, is it compatible with most of the materials on the market? Is it only PLA? Is it only ABS?
That's a good question. Yeah, we're working with PLA and ABS right now, but our filament that allows for the transitions and the color vibrancy is our own proprietary filament. Now, whenever people hear proprietary, they think that that's a red flag and stay away. But we want to show everyone that it's built from the ground up, because without this system, the whole thing just doesn't work. And our objective here is not to own the filament to gouge customers. It's really just to have quality control, because without our filament, it just doesn't work. So really, everything's going to be a fair market price. It's going to be exactly what you would expect. And yeah.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, you are actually going to be providing the filament as well as the dye. But if I also understood correctly, even though, and I can't think of and I don't have an illustration of it, which is bad on my part, you had this hooked up to, what was the printer?
A Robo 3D.
Robo 3D. But it doesn't have to be a Robo 3D, is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So do you have to actually change out your hot end or extruder with something that you've created on another printer? I mean, how does this kit work? I saw some illustrations. Maybe, Chris, can you do a little search if you have that and see if we can come up with that Robo 3D image? I apologize for not having that, but it looked like you had like a canister or a container with tubes coming out of it going into the Robo 3D. This reminded me of back when I was a system manager with a multidiscipline firm where we had gosh, I think it was even called a Spectrum something, but it was a large bed color plotter, and it had these quart-sized containers of inkjet off to the side with these tubes that they had retrofitted, and so this is kind of what came to my mind. Oh, cool, kind of an interesting design.
Yeah,
Chris, were you able to come up with something?
I'm looking for. You're looking for the Robo 3D, yeah.
It's actually at the end of the video too that you showed in the intro. We have a clip of the.
But here's some of their printers, and it is talking about using the Spectrum system.
Yeah, I think the best place that you could for sure find an image would be at the end of that video.
Okay, well let me loop back to it. I'll drop it up here. So you said at the end?
Yeah, it was like the second to last image there.
Okay.
So to be clear, our system is pre-extrusion. Right.
Okay. There we go.
So, okay, that's perfect. So what we did here is we modified the hotend to allow for our drive system to be built into our system. So on a technical level, what happens is we are plugging our device into the board on the 3D printer, the standard Marlin-powered board, and we're essentially stealing the signals that the 3D printer is already being sent every time there's supposed to be an extrusion. We get that signal, and we advance the color cue by one step. And the coloring actually happens in this box that sits on the side. So that's what kind of makes it printer agnostic. So we can work with all the Marlin-based printers, and it sits on the side, meaning that we don't have to modify our hardware necessarily to fit each printer. Now, there might be a little bit of modifications to each printer to allow for a Bowden tube design like we have here. But that's why we're going through this process right now of kind of validating printers and seeing which ones are really easy to go with and providing instructions and starting to lay out instructions that will provide to customers on how to modify their printers super easily.
Okay, so then, you know, I did point out possibly Delta printers, but since most Delta printers are Bowden-based, that might be something that either you've already experimented with. Will it work with Delta printers?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Any 3D printer, and you know, the ones with the existing Bowden just mean that you have less modification. But to be honest, the modification of a Robo, which is currently like a direct drive system, didn't take more than 20 minutes. And with very simple instructions, I think a lot of people will be happy to do that themselves.
Well, the Ultimaker series is also Bowden-driven. Have you experimented with this, even though they use a 3mm? Have you talked to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we support both 3mm and 175. Actually, the model we were showcasing at CES was a 3mm version, which is just the first kind of version that we're experimenting with. And yeah, we're working with Ultimakers right now, and they work fantastic. Actually, the colors are extremely vibrant, and that printer is just very reliable. We love it.
Yeah, it's a great printer, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. So the ultimate question, boy, we've run through this really quick. Let's get out of this one quick, guys. But when can I get one?
Oh.
I signed up. When can I be part of your beta test?
So we're planning to make a big announcement in the middle of this year about exactly what this is going to look like. And just to kind of open the door a little bit here, we're starting to imagine a place where maybe we don't have to sell the unit as a standalone product. We're starting to work with hardware manufacturers to get this integrated from the get-go, because we know how excited people are about color. We want it to be as widely distributed as possible, and for as many people to start tinkering with and messing with it. And our software is going to help people really sink their teeth in and develop what they want to develop on our platform.
Well, don't forget the tinkerer like myself. You know, I have 4 printers, can't afford another one. It would be great to be able to buy something additionally, unless the whole integration is going to be cheaper than which would sell this as a standalone. Who knows? But you said mid-year, so mid-year 2015?
Yeah, we'll be making a big announcement then.
Okay, are you going to be doing a Kickstarter or just have a product that people can pre-order?
Yeah, it's too early to say. We think a Kickstarter is definitely a great route, but again, if we're working with with some of these 3D printing companies, there might be a better way to get out certified versions to those customers. So, for example, what kind of printers do you have?
Let's see. I've got a MakerGear M2. I've got a Castle Clear. I have a MakerBot. Let's see. What's the other one? Oh, I've got a couple of SLA, but somehow I don't think that's going to work with SLA printers.
Not quite the same process, but maybe one day.
But actually, I did have an Ultimaker. Sadly, I had to sell it. I wish I hadn't. But I'm in the works of getting their little mini one, so it would be fun to see if this would work with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and see, for low modification cases, I think people would be very excited with the plug and play. It seriously is so easy to set your printer up with this, with printers that already have a Bowden tube. And again, we just want to make sure it's an easy experience for the customer and that it just kind of gets going right out of the box.
So have you talked to Simplify 3D or actually even Ultimaker with their CUDA series of CUDA? Sorry, I've got something else in my head. What's their slicer called?
Cura.
Cura, thank you. So have you talked to them about possibly integrating this within their slicers?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when we're coming out with this that's so different, so differentiated from what's out there, and people are kind of waiting for the next thing to develop for, I think a lot of people are kind of getting excited by the possibility that this brings. Sorry, that was my phone.
I was thinking somebody's in the background blowing a horn.
Yeah, that was my phone was ringing.
And I have a Rostock Max, so that's Bowden. That's already set up. So I think I'll probably. Yeah.
Let's get you one right away.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute.
And so do we know what and what about price point? Do we know? Do you have any idea, like ballpark range of what something like this?
Yeah, well, we definitely have a ballpark. Unfortunately, we're not making that announcement today, but I can assure you of one thing. If we didn't want to buy it, that's not what we're going to sell for. It's going to be completely affordable. Our every component that we're integrating in, the first filter it goes through is price, and then is how good it performs in the grand scheme of things. So really, it's got to be price and it's got to work well. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, good to know.
So what are you saying? Because I don't have a CME CNC printer. I'm not even considered a candidate anymore.
No,
old news, Mike. Old news.
But luckily, I'm only a few miles from Chris, and
That's
I'll be
true.
able to come up and see it in action. Actually, maybe he'll come down here, and we'll actually bring it on the show and talk about it. Well, I'm excited about it. I think this is a really cool product.
And how about trade shows? Any other events you guys are planning on making it to within the next few months, or that you guys will be at, where we might be able to see this thing in real life?
Yeah, no, we're definitely planning to make a few trade show appearances, and we just kind of got to evaluate it here. But you'll be the first to know when we officially decide to jump onto one.
So
awesome.
You mentioned that you seem to be a little elated that he's got a Rostock Max. Are you been introduced to John Ollie from CNC?
I have not. I have not. Okay. I just know that if it's a Bowden system, that makes it really easy for us.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I will introduce you to them virtually after the podcast, or maybe a little bit later today. He's a great guy. They've got a great mantra as far as introducing stuff. Kind of down to earth. They're from Ohio. What date is their little maker fair that they're going to be at?
The big Midwest Rep Fair is coming up here in March, and it is I guess an event not to miss if you are out in the Midwest. It's just it's in Indiana, and it's just a really awesome. A lot of the kind of like more rep style 3D printer companies go out, and a lot of the maker community makes it out. It's kind of basically their equivalent to the maker fairs that the big cities get. So we have a maker fair out here in the Bay Area, and then New York,
which is coming up as well.
Yeah, but anymore it's almost impossible to even negotiate, because it's like so many people in such a finite amount of space at the San Mateo Fairgrounds, and Pretty much by lunchtime, it's standing room only, and it's really jam packed. So these little fairs are kind of, I think, a really good, alternative. And so anybody that's out in the Midwest, highly recommend making it out to the Midwest Rep Rap Festival or fair. I've heard really a lot of good things about it, and I wish I could be there myself.
Perfect. Yeah, no, well, that definitely sounds like an awesome opportunity. I'll have to check that out myself.
Yep. So, John, if you're out there listening to this today, I think you need to hook up with Cedric here and see what you guys can get up and running. Maybe you guys can work something out for your Maker Faire in Ohio. Now, you said you were in Quebec. Did I enter, or did I get that wrong?
That's where I'm from originally. We live in Madison, Wisconsin now. So, Midwest.
Even more so. You're just like a little north of them, so I would seriously figure a way to get down there and get involved with John. Okay, so Chris, I think that's about it. You got any more questions for Cedric?
I think that's it. Yeah, the Midwest Rep Rap Fest is coming March 20 through 22nd. And let me see the location here. I'm just trying to look up the location so that. And it's it's 2.5 hours east of Chicago.
Perfect.
It's in Elkhart, Indiana. So.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I actually think I might know where that is. I'm new to the Midwest myself, so still getting to know Chicago, Indiana.
Yeah. So I'd love to go out there and kind of check this fair out. These are like the underground ones, So it's like
that's how we like it.
Yeah, exactly. I figured you might be.
Real hardcore users.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'll go ahead and introduce you virtually to him and see what can come out of that. Well, Cedric, I am really glad you came on. As I said, I'm very excited. I'm sorry I don't have a raw stock map, but a Caso Clear is a Delta. It's very similar to that.
It has Bowden.
It does have a Bowden. Okay,
yes.
We're in business.
Okay, all right. So we'd love to actually experiment with this. I would, at least. I know Chris probably would as well. So I really appreciate you coming on. And what else was I going to say? I kind of forgot. Oh, I actually was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a little bit north.
There we go.
So I do have some experience, not much, but a little bit. All right, Chris, why don't you carry the show off?
All right. Well, thanks, Cedric, so much for being on the program, and to all our listeners. And we will see you next time on All Things 3D.
Bye.